James here with the Oracle Outlook for the week starting May the 11th, 2020. Thanks so much for tuning in and joining me for this week's video reading. I am so happy to have you here. This week I'm continuing to honor the request of viewers who are asking me to work with specific systems in this space. So if you watched last week's video, you'll remember that I honored the request of Natalia, who asked me to work with Tarot de Marseille. This week, I'm honoring the request of Ismail, who asked me if I would be willing to work with Kipper. Now, if you are observant, you will probably note that Ismail asked me to work with Kipper once before. So when I put out that I didn't have any requests at the moment to work with specific systems, Ismail circled back around and asked me if I would be willing to work with Kipper once again. So Ismail, if you are watching this video right now, you know this is for you. So the deck that I'm specifically working with is one of my favorites in my collection, and that is the Roaring Twenties Kipper. It is by Lynn Boyle, and as always, I will be leaving information about the deck in the description box below. So now that I've set things up, let's get to the table and see what the Roaring Twenties Kipper wants to say to Ismail and the rest of us for the week ahead. And here we are with the cards on the table, and I'm going to take a few moments to shuffle the deck. And as I do every week, I'm focusing on the intention that the information, the insight, the guidance and advice that comes through the cards is the most helpful and beneficial that we can receive regarding the upcoming week. One more time will be good. All right, now I'm going to go ahead and cut the deck. And fan the cards out. And now I'm looking for 5 cards in the fan to get my attention, because I'm continuing to do line of 5 reading. So I see 2 and 3 are way over here together. And I'm looking for the 5th and final card, which I see here. So I have the 5 cards selected. I'm going to take the remainder of the deck up. I'm going to move that to one side. And now I'm going to readjust my cards here. In the order that I picked them. Alright, so when I work with Kipper, I work with it a little differently than I do Lenormand or my Gypsy cards or Gypsy Witch cards, and I read them from left to right because I tend to read Kipper like a story, and so this is a storyline, and based on what the cards mean, because certain cards do certain things in the line, I allow them to offer me about where the story is moving in terms of direction. Okay, so starting with the card on the far left, opening the line up, we have work and occupation. Okay, so this is actually the job card in the deck, and so the first thing that comes to me is that this is talking about either in a collective sense, job and employment issues. And so I just know here in the United States, and I always mention that because I can only talk about what's going on here to my knowledge. And so this is being filmed on Saturday, May the 9th. And so we just had the previous day the unemployment numbers come out. And so I'm thinking that this is talking about that in that particular sense, right? So we're talking about people who may be dealing with employment issues. And it could also be that, again, going with the idea that here in the United States, with the coronavirus, that people are slowly returning to work. So I'm seeing this as work and occupation issues in both those senses. But this could also be just for the more personal. This could just be like there are going to be issues related to your own job or your own occupation. If you're self-employed, this is also a self-employment card, right? And I'm looking at the image, and we have three people who are out in the field doing work, right? So this could be talking about the field that you work in, right? Or this could be about physical work, manual labor, those kinds of things, right? So it could just be a matter of the field or industry that you are working in, there's something going on with that, or that the work that you do is actually about, physical work, manual work, working with your hands, that kind of thing. Now, aside from the actual aspect of work and occupation, this card is also about, handiwork, so like hobbies or anything that you would do involving your hands. So this could be about creative work, you know, um, being with other people who do this similar type of work. If we talk about hobbies and interests, right? That kind of thing. So I'm seeing that with work and occupation. I would just say, just generally speaking, this is a week where starting off we are putting energy into work of some kind or some nature, right? So that could be work that we do for um, money, employment. It could be self-employment or some kind of handiwork or manual labor or physical labor, something that we're actually having to physically do, working with our hands, that kind of thing. But it would just be talking about, putting work into a situation, right? So I'm seeing that. So now let's move on to the next card. And here we have a gift. Okay, so whenever I see a gift, for me, it could represent something having to do with an offer that's being presented to us. So this may be an offer being presented that has to do with work and occupation, right? So I'm seeing that now. The gift could also be something that we are being given that's connected to work and occupation. So again, this may be something having to do with here in the United States with the coronavirus situation. I'm seeing this as an offer being presented for maybe small businesses, people who are self-employed. Again, something being made for people who are going through a challenge, right? Around their jobs or employment, things of that nature. So again, this could be another round of some kind of stimulus or some kind of loan for people who are experiencing struggles in their employment. This could even be unemployment, right? So there may be something being offered for people who are struggling, and it looks like these people on the work occupation card are, pulling a load. It looks like they are working very, very hard, right? So it could just be the people who are working hard to kind of correct their situation or improve it, right? So I'm seeing that. But a gift, again, for me can represent something that's being presented to us. Now, in terms of timing, this card can represent something having to do with the holidays. And the most recent holiday we had Easter, but the one that's upcoming is Memorial Day. So there may be something around an offer being presented by Memorial Day, or the idea about getting people back out into the workforce by Memorial Day, right? And maybe some incentive is attached to that, but that's what I'm seeing. And I'm looking at the image on the card, and the woman looks like she's calling out to somebody, right? So there may be a call having to do with returning to work or getting the workforce back out, something of that nature. But I'm noting the fact that she looks like she's calling out to people, right? And so, as I said that, the pun that's coming to me is like the offer could be made in terms of a call. So if it's not like a call to action, it could actually be somebody is placing a call or making a call. And so that's a pun for a phone call, right? But I'm seeing that with a gift and work occupation. So now let's take a look at what's at the heart of the story. And here we have, in the middle, we have older woman. So older woman is a person card in Kipper, and it can usually represent two types of women. First, it would be a woman who is older than the collective watching this video, right? So this could be an older sister, an older cousin, could be an aunt, could be a mother, grandmother, somebody who is older than the collective, right? That's one way of looking at her. She can also be a woman who holds a position of authority. So this is somebody who may hold a senior position, playing the idea of older, right? Or this could be somebody with some type of maturity or experience, or wisdom gained through experience. Older woman, depending on the cards that are surrounding her, can be a helpful person. So this may be, if we go with a gift coming before older woman, this may be a woman who holds some kind of position of authority, who's attached to or connected to the offer being presented, right? It could also be that there is a woman who holds a senior position of authority. If I make this more personal, somebody on the job may be having an offer being presented to them coming from an older woman. So now it could also be because she's at the center of the line that an older woman is the focus or the center of this work situation and the offer being presented, meaning like it focuses on her. So again, older woman can represent a woman who's being affected by this, meaning it's being presented to her, or that she's in the position of presenting this to other people in the workforce. Right, so that's what I'm saying. And I will say this, with Kipper, I read with direction in mind, so she's actually not facing these cards. So this could be something from her past, meaning that she has initiated this, or that she is struggling with this. Sometimes I read with direction in mind that the cards that are behind a person is what the person is struggling with, right? So this could be maybe a woman who is self-employed and she's struggling with maybe making an offer or presenting something to her audience, her market, her demographic to get them to come back and do business with her, right? So I'm seeing that as a possibility as well. Okay, so since I talked about the direction, she's actually facing these cards. So let's see what's coming up regarding this older woman. So the card closest to her is the house. Okay, so it never fails. When I work with these systems, the house card tends to show up quite often. So in regards to work and occupation showing up in the reading, house can also represent a small business or a home-based business. So if we bring this back to work and make it about self-employment, this could be an older woman who actually has her own business. She may work from home, right? So there's that. It could also be that she is facing a situation that's close to home. So house could represent her own house, her own home life, but it can also represent family and family related issues. So remember I talked about older women being, maybe an older sibling or an aunt or a mother or a grandmother. So this would make sense with house in that regard because this could represent a female relative, right? So there's that. And house could also represent something having to do with comfort, right? So it could just be a gift, would be an offer being presented that would allow in the future, she's looking this way, some comfort at home, right? Something that would make her home life maybe a tad easier, especially if she's been struggling, right? But house in and of itself can represent one's home life, one's personal life, something having to do with family or issues around comfort. And so now let's take a look at the final card in the line this week, and we have abundance. And now, before I do that, I'm looking at older woman and house, and I had talked about Congress. This makes me feel like a woman in the House of Representatives, right? So that would be Congress again, and that may be how we bring back a gift in terms of an offer being presented. So there may be something, And immediately I first think of the Speaker of the House, which is Nancy Pelosi, right? So this could be a reference to her specifically, or another woman in Congress, in the House of Representatives specifically, because I'm seeing that, right? Now it could also be a senior woman in the House, and so that makes me feel like maybe the White House, if I make this really about politics. And then it would be something having to do with an offer being presented by a senior official in the House. I'm going to go with the House of Representatives as my first thing if I'm going to make this political, rather than the White House. In terms of, again, an offer being presented with people connected to job, employment, or people out in the workforce. And again, I'm thinking this is more towards people who are struggling with their work, their jobs, their businesses, in connection to the recent unemployment numbers, right? Okay, so that's what I'm seeing. So now, the last card, abundance, right? And so abundance is financial increase, right? So again, if we mirror the cards, work and occupation and abundance, here we are talking about financial increase for the workforce and people who are self-employed and in business, right? Abundance here usually represents a lot of something, right? So we also have house, and this could be wanting to move people from being in isolation, being in quarantine, that kind of thing, being in the house and getting them back out, right? How can we get, what work can we do to get people back out in the world, right? That's what I'm seeing with work occupation. And I'm sorry if I jostled the tripod because I touched it. Okay, so that's what I'm seeing, but this would be about financial increase. Abundance is usually wealth, abundance, financial increase, something having to do with money. And I always pick up on this when I look at this particular image from this particular deck, that one of the bags he has is full of money, but the other bag has a hole in it and money is coming out, right? So this would be about money that we are losing, even though this is not the theft card, but I pick up that in the image. Or what kind of changes can we make regarding finances, and in terms of creating increase, right? Not decrease, but increase, right? So that's what I'm seeing with this. So it looks like to me with this line this week that there's going to be some concerted effort in trying to create increase. And again, that would be around the economy and what kind of offers are going to be presented that would allow that to take place, right? But again, I'm just repeating the messages here that I was getting from last week, and I talked about like the recovery process financially and trying to restore the economy, and the only way you can do that would be to get people back out into the workforce and getting people to spend money, right? So this again, what kind of incentives can we get to get people out there spending money, right? Because that's part of the economy is again, consumerism. So how can we get people back out there buying money? So we got to first be willing to get people out of the houses, out of their homes, and back out, right? So that's what I'm seeing in the cards this week. And on that note, I will go ahead and end this week's Oracle Outlook here. I am James Himm Mitchell, and I want to thank you for sharing the space here with me for this week's reading. And I look forward to sharing the same space with you again in our next video reading together. So until then, I am hoping that you have the best day possible, and I'm hoping that you have the best week possible. Take care.